So, 1, 2, 3. Yeah? Welcome to DCTV.tv. My name is Philip Banse. We are at the DLD Women Conference in Munich 2012. My next guest is Esther Wojcicki. Sorry for that. We practice it in advance, but yeah, I'm not so good at it. Esther Wojcicki, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Sorry for not pronouncing your name correctly. So I'm always interested in new ideas and new approaches to education. And you were a teacher at a high school, English and journalism. And you have found a quite interesting approach to teach students stuff using journalistic tools. How do you do it?
So I think journalism is a very important skill for students to have. It's not just for being a journalist, it's just for life in general.
Yeah.
So I'll give you an idea. So a typical journalist has to go out and find information, whether they find the information on the web or find information in interviews or find information somehow. They have to do some research, primary research, and then they have to take that information that they get and figure out what's most important. And then they have to write it up in a way that other people can understand it. So if students can do that, they know a lot already. That means they know how to find information they want, how to analyze, how to critically think, and how to write. Those three things, most students graduating from college today have a hard time doing that.
You started with a rather small journalism program in your high school, 19 or so students?
So in 1984, right, I started with 19 students at Palo Alto High School in a typical journalism program. And so when I first came in, students had a book, textbook, and I was supposed to have them read the book, and then every Friday they took a test. And then I did that for about 4 months, and I realized nobody was learning anything. They didn't learn how to write. So I took the liberty, without asking, I figured I better not ask.
You never must not ask, no.
I threw away the book. And I instead developed this program. There were no books. So then I brought in regular newspapers. And I said to the students, we're going to read the newspaper, and then now you're going to try to imitate some of the stories that we see in the newspaper. And the first thing we started with was news. So I had them running around the school, first of all, looking for news. And most students aren't used to doing that. You know, they're so used to worry about their grades and who likes them and whether their hair looks good and, you know, who they're going to see on Saturday night. So this was a new experience for them. And it turned out that they liked it. They really liked it, and they learned a lot. And then the next year, they told their friends. And so my program grew that next year from 19 to I maybe had 32 kids in the class. And each successive year, it continued to grow. And I added more things. So in addition to doing news, they did features. So they could write a feature, which is basically news that has no time-sensitive information. You could write a feature about whatever they wanted. So if they liked skateboarding, they could interview skateboarders. Or if they liked tattoos, they could interview people about I didn't care what they did, you know, whatever. And they got very excited about this because all their other classes, they were told what to learn. Whereas in my class, they got to pick what they wanted to do and then write about it.
And the program grew to almost 600 students?
So the program grew, in 1998, the program grew to 80. And I said, this is too big. I cannot deal with 80 people in one class. It's a lot. So I started another program. So at that point, the first program I started after that was an online broadcast journalism program where we televised. So I moved some students to the television program, and that program did well. And then 2 years later, it kept growing, and so then I added a magazine. First, it was a news magazine based on Time magazine, because that's originally where I had worked years ago. And then through the years, from 2000 to 2009, I added additional programs. So I added a sports magazine, I added a website, I added additional broadcast journalism program, video production classes were already added at that point. And I still taught the newspaper class, which grew. It started at 6 pages, a full-size newspaper, and today it's 28 pages, 2 sections, full-size. So it's the size of the New York Times. It's a broadsheet.
And it's students have one class a day?
Students have 1 class per day.
How many hours? Like 2 or 1.5 or how much?
Well, initially it was 1 hour per day.
Yeah.
And then they've modified the schedule now so that I have 2 hours every other day.
Okay. So, and you have 5 teachers working on these?
I have additional teachers now. We hired 5 additional journalism teachers.
And all these classes contribute to these outlets, TV, magazine, newspaper, radio, website, whatever.
That's right.
Okay, it's doing fine. And now you say, well, when students learning that well in these journalism class about any subject they select, maybe we could use it for other subjects as well.
Right. Well, so now I have in the journalism about 590 students in the journalism program, and it's an elective, so they choose to take this class. So the question is, well, how about all the rest of the kids in the school? We have 1,900 kids in the school. Why do just the journalism kids get this special training? So now we're going to teach it in all the 9th grade English classes. So all 9th grade students will get, not the whole year, but they'll get a unit, so maybe 10 weeks, or depends on the teacher. I'm teaching it next year, so I will intermix it. So there will be, like for example, first they'll do, let's say, Shakespeare. Then the next unit, they get to do journalism, so maybe they'll write restaurant reviews. Or maybe they get to do gaming reviews. They pick a game online and then they have to write a review of the game.
Is the journalism part of your English lesson anyhow different from the journalism program classes?
No. It's the same. The only thing is that in my journalism program, I actually teach all the technology too. So I teach the whole Adobe Creative Suite.
Okay.
But in my English class, I use all of the Google tools. So I use Google Docs and spreadsheets to keep track of, and they correct each other's work because they share it on Google Docs.
Okay.
And we use Google Hangouts. So all those so I want them to be really familiar with technology. I want them to think of the computer as a way to get information.
Okay.
And a way it's lifelong learning, not just in my class, but forever. They want to have information. How do they get it? I mean, I won't be there forever to help them. They need to learn on their own.
And you try to do it nationwide, to introduce this program, this approach nationwide?
So I'm trying to introduce this approach nationwide. So I've already, I was on the this task force for the state of California on educational technology. So I've introduced this to California. And so people are aware of it and they're trying to do this, but I'm also trying to do it nationwide in the United States and give teachers the opportunity to engage their students, to get students to want to learn as opposed to worried about if you don't learn, you're going to get an F.
And does it fit for biology and chemistry and physics and sport? Now sports, okay, but...
Well, for example, for biology, let students do an investigation of some kind of project they want to do. Let them write it up and blog about it, write about it. How does that hurt? And, well, chemistry, you have to memorize a lot of things, but they could still write about certain things, maybe not as frequently as you do in a language class, but you could still do once a quarter to make it meaningful. In math, for example, they can use... There's an app creator that is housed at MIT, and you can learn all the math, algebra, and then you can learn to program your cell phone, your Android phone. So,
okay, and okay, you have the feeling and the experience, and you're convinced that it's working.
yes.
Do you have any other signs that show you that those students that use journalistic tools to learn are better than other students?
Well, I can just look at my graduates who come back and who connect with me online, who tell me that this class has changed their life. And it's not just one or two, there are hundreds of them that say that it has made a huge difference in their life, that they become more self-assured. There's a lot of entrepreneurs that took the class. I have actors, the most famous of my students probably now. I have two really famous students. One is Jeremy Lin. Do you know who he is? The basketball star from New York.
Okay.
And the other is James Franco, the actor. Do you know who James Franco? So he was in 125 Hours, Spider-Man.
Ah, okay.
So, and he also did Eat, Pray, Love.
Okay.
So
Okay.
all these, but he did a poster with me that basically said that, the fact that I gave students so much responsibility to discover their own learning made the difference in him for his life.
And do you have scientific data that supports your experience?
So there's a researcher at the University of Oregon who got his PhD just this year in June, who wrote a thesis about the program. He investigated it, and he has documented this. He surveyed hundreds of students and discovered the students taking this type of a program score much higher on language tests and on writing skills, and so it's all documented, will be published this month sometime.
Suppose teacher listen to this
Yes.
and say, well, I'm also not satisfied with the way I conduct my classes and how things go. I'd like to try this.
Yes.
What is your recommendation? Where to start? What to do? What not to do?
Good question. So a lot of people are interested. I would love to help everybody. So I'm actually going to set up a website, and I'm going to do what is called an MOOC, a massive open online course, to try to teach people how to teach these courses. So hopefully this will happen sometime this summer. But
And
in the
will be
meantime, they could just go to the website, Palo Alto High School, and see the work that the students do. And
do you have to have journalistic experience as a teacher to do these classes?
I think most teachers have a lot of experience studying, so I don't think they really need to have it. I think what they need to do is have a culture shift. They have to realize that they can give some control to the students, allow students to explore themselves and write these things up themselves. So I think that's the hardest thing, relinquishing some control. Because I have in my journalism class, so right now I have 70 kids in that one class, and every student has a separate assignment. They're not the same. You can imagine, I have to trust those students to go out and get that information correctly. So you have to relinquish some control. And most teachers give same assignment to every student and then check that assignment. So I have the students checking each other's. They're very smart, those kids. Just imagine, it's hard for teachers to fool students, that.
Yeah.
And so they can catch each other's errors just as well as I can. And that is the biggest change, I think, for teachers, to understand the culture shift, that it's okay to allow students to be in class, interact with each other, talk in class, because the culture of the classroom is the teacher talks and the students are quiet. And I changed the culture so that the students do a lot of the talking and interaction, and I facilitate. I make sure that if they can't find the information, this is where you go. I teach the tools.
And I mean, okay, I suppose you have this kind of big class and some, you introduce those new tools to them and you say, well, it's up to you, pick a topic, pick a subject and write on it. Some may have been, well, nice, I've been waiting for this, but I suppose some didn't. What were the biggest obstacles on the student side you had to overcome? How did you have to motivate them? Did you have certain switches to make them move?
Yeah, that's true. So usually students come in the class and they are not used to a teacher giving them this, and they don't know what to do. They are shocked. It takes me about 8 weeks to get them to realize that they have some freedom, and because they're used to, they don't question anything. They want me. I was like, you're the teacher. Tell me what to do, and then give me a test. If you don't do that, are you still the teacher? Yeah. So they can't figure it out. But once they do, then they never want to leave. So my students, they never want to go home. Instead of the cutting class, they don't want to leave. They just want to stay and work on these projects. So I would say, in general, that's a success. And you want students to have sort of seamless between home and school. You know, they go home from school, they talk about this, they work on this, they talk to their friends. You know, it's life. You know, life is a series of projects. It's not a series of multiple choice tests. It's not a series of homework assignments. You know, let them work on these projects that have like real life projects. Things that they're personally interested in. It'll make a big difference.
Esther, thank you very much for your time. I wish you all the best for your program.
Yes, well, thank you.
Thanks very much.
I hope it works for everybody. Can I drink this water now?
Okay, go ahead. Thank you very much.